Corey.
Or Corey, I'm sorry. The C name is all the same.
All you C name
Close one.
people.
Rube, I'll do it, I guess. I'll do it.
Okay.
On the last episode of Waycrest, the heroes had just recently defeated a terrifying monster in the swamp. And upon the defeat of this monster, they returned to the man in charge of the finances of the town, the uppity elf, and after a short discussion about ethics and pleasantries, he happened to fall down the stairs as he was mercilessly beaten for his racist stance on half-orcs. And yes, and then after the high elf was beaten, the party proceeded to move onward towards the armory of the town. Not the armory so much as the guard tower.
Yeah,
And,
Fort Sinclair. Yep.
Yeah, Fort Sinclair. And from there, the party decided to ride along on one of the escorts to the next town over because we were looking for... What exactly were we looking for again? It's been I swear it's been over 2 weeks.
Yeah. What you guys were going there for, the Fort Sinclair, was a couple things. The first one was to return a letter from Penniless to the captain there, letting him know about this, if you guys deciding to keep the estate or not. And the other reason was to locate the lost shipment that's supposed to be coming from Alistair.
Of the ale.
The
yes.
ale for the tavern.
Very important business. You cannot forget about the ale. And while we were on the trip, we came upon a very strange, crazy woman.
Yes, named Lucia.
Yes, Lucia regaled us with her stories, her strange animal stories, and her strange and quite, you might say they were intriguing. Someone might call them terribly annoying, but Ruby countered with her own tales of this great concept called economics. Something the druid was not particularly fond of.
Fight boring was boring.
And I would have to imagine, because the druid is no longer with us, perhaps Ruby prevailed at the end of the day.
No, Lucia is still with you guys. She's just an NPC.
Oh, okay. I have converted her into an NPC.
That was a skill with a very long semantic.
The very arcane, intensive skill. And after meeting with her, we were attacked by some more of these strange, putrid-looking plague wolves, and a short battle ensued, and we were victorious, utterly and completely destroying them, sending their remains scattering through the forest. And I believe we stopped pretty much about there.
Gotcha. That is correct. Okay, so you guys are Thronk, Ruby, Laughing Fox, and Drygon and Lucia, obviously, are sitting around you guys' campfire that you guys kind of put together a little camp to stop for the night. And as you're doing so, you're just kind of sitting on these logs in a circle. And at first, Lucia's kind of, telling some tales and things, just kind of keeping the atmosphere going. Nothing too eccentric this time, but more tales about things that go bump in the night, the kind of folk stories that are used to scare the children. And she's just kind of going on and having a good time, and she makes a couple of jokes that are a little morbid. And as the night kind of goes on, the mist kind of starts to come in around you guys. Your visibility is kind of being choked away as the starlight kind of fades out of existence, and this darkness just kind of lapses over you guys. And after a while, Lucia, she becomes pretty intoxicated, and decides to head off to bed early. And as you guys are kind of sitting out there just talking and things, what do you say to one another? Like, what sort of preparations do you make for the next day?
I'm not really saying anything to anyone. If if you like observe my movements, it seems like I'm moving around a little sluggish, and I'm kind of favoring my left side where I landed in the shrubs after being thrown from a horse, and I'm kind of rubbing my left palm. And if you for people who actually look, you'll see burn marks on my palm.
Yeah, Ruby would be kind of just trying to come up with any excuse to not have to listen to the dreary stories of the druid. Perhaps she eventually does go to sleep though, and she'd now be able to actually talk to her companions. And she would notice her half-orc friend kind of favoring his leg and clawing or pawing at his injuries. She would kind of stoop over him and look down at his injuries, and she would say, "Ah, are you all right? Looks like you could use some medical treatment."
Uh, I will say hi to my new cat.
Climbing on stuff, huh?
He's been super chill since we got him, and then like today has just been like he's finally felt comfortable enough to destroy everything he can. Okay. Sorry about that. It'll be fine. I'm just a little sore. Um, did did I throw lightning at that wolf?
Ruby would think for a moment and she'd say, "Well, you are a sorcerer, right?"
I guess, but I've never thrown lightning before.
Well, you know, sorcerers have a lot of trouble knowing what kind of magic they might be using. It's not quite as practiced and trained and regimented as what a wizard would have.
I certainly never asked for it.
Some of us never asked to be, super strong or super smart or super quick, but sometimes that's how life happens.
Right. Like I said, I'll be fine. I'm just a little sore.
And
being thrown from a horse is not comfortable.
Yeah, I imagine it must not be very comfortable. And she'd kind of show you one of her arms that's like bandaged up, and she would just kind of smirk and say, "Well, when life gives you a face full of dirt, you just sometimes have to try to wipe it off and clean up a bit."
Right. Well, we'll carry on.
So, as you two have been sitting here discussing with one another, Drygon and Laughing Fox have kind of, got tired and kind of slumped off into their tent. But you kind of hadn't noticed until just now that the two of you just been kind of sitting out here alone, talking with one another. And as you're doing this, the sounds of the night kind of fade away and becomes very still. Almost like you could hear anything in the swamp, but nothing is making a sound. And as this silence kind of draws out for a good 30 seconds, maybe a minute even too, you begin to hear some sloshing in the water, like something kind of taking hastened footsteps.
I will. I'll stand up and put my hand to my boarding axe.
Yeah, you'd see Ruby kind of hide, perhaps beneath like a little part of the camp and kind of crouch down a bit as she pulls out her two throwing daggers ready to try to impale whatever foul beast sneaks out upon them.
Yes, and these footsteps are kind of sped up more quickly now, and like a run, obviously, and it's coming closer and closer, becoming louder and louder to you, and the splashing. It sounds like it's having a hard time running, difficulty, struggling for sure. And then you begin hearing the howls of wolves. And as these sounds kind of come toward the camp, you can now see from the other side of the road a shorter figure, possibly about half as high as a normal man would be, kind of thrusting through the water as best he can, and coming directly toward your campfire light that you could barely see in the distance, running from something. You're not sure.
Yeah, Ruby would look to her ally, seeing this short figure approaching, and she would say, "Maybe that's a Dwergar, right? One of those mountain dwarf things. Uh, keep an eye out. Those things are pretty dangerous." And she would kind of look over to see what it is and be ready to attack should it act foolish.
Yeah,
Alright.
And Matt, you are running from something, and what you are running from is you can describe it to me. Um, what is it that you have escaped and how you got here?
Okay. So I've been running now for several days away from the slave camp where I have been held for the majority of my life for about the last 30 years. And in my escape, I've run across fields and I've run across all these different areas, and it's been I haven't known when to stop, and then all of a sudden the rain started, and then I found myself here in the swamp, and since I got here, there's been all of these weird sounds coming from the swamp, making my heart race. I've not really experienced much of the outside world, having been a slave for most of my life, and not knowing what these beasts could possibly be, have just pushed myself to my limits, trenching through the swamp, and hearing the howls coming from closer and closer towards me. I've pressed myself further into the swamp, and you see me now caked in mud. So I am 4'7". My whole lower body is just like caked with this oozing mud. My beard that goes beyond my knees is just saturated and putrid. You see my wild hair and wild eyes as I look behind me, not knowing what beast this could possibly be, and you can see that there's like whip marks on my arms as I come closer towards the fire, but you know, my cloak, I do have a cloak on, but it's being torn away by the swamp trees and things like that I've been pressing myself through. And yeah, you can see whip marks all along my arms as I come out. Eyes open wide, just not knowing what beast this could possibly be.
Gotcha. And you can hear some snarling going on behind you, and the howls of wolves are off in the distance.
Wow, those Dwegar are even more disgusting than I imagined. Wow. Are you one of those evil Dwergar, or are you like that one in a million good one? Ruby would ask, holding her
Well,
daggers firmly as she kind of would look across to the stranger who's approaching.
As I pull myself out of yet another muddy ditch, I shake my foot and I look at the fire. I shade my eyes because the brightness is just such a juxtaposition to the darkness and murkiness of the swamp. And so, my eyes are covered, and I'm just like, you defile our name by calling us Dwagar. I am a dwarf,
Oh, I
and
couldn't
I
tell.
have been a slave of those foul creatures most of my life. And I draw out my war pick and I
As
say,
you start drawing a weapon, I'm like getting my axe pulled up, ready to like I'm getting ready to just to charge in and
yeah. And at this, so you're a half orc.
half orc. Yep.
Um, are you more human than a half orc, or than orc, or more orc than
We should
human?
describe we should
I'm
describe our characters, Corey. Describe your
okay.
Yeah.
characters.
yeah.
So I'm tall for a human, short for a half orc at 6'3", so it's the shorter end of the half orc, but I'm very well built out, very muscular, 200 and 250 pounds. Very prominent teeth, sloping forehead, and a grayer, kind of a greenish skin tone. So I probably appear like a shortish orc. Um, but there's also um, a very subtle, um, almost scaly texture, but it's very very light. It's not anything that you would actually confuse for being scales or anything like that, but it just looks like maybe there's some kind of a patterning on my face. My arms are clearly strong, but they're covered down to the wrist by my shirt, and I've got a boarding axe, which is it's got a curved blade and a spike at the back end. It's kind of a longer handle. It looks like it could be a two-handed axe almost, but at least to a human. But I wield it very comfortably in one hand. That's probably about the highlights for the looks.
Yeah, Ruby's a pretty tall human woman. She's about 5'10", substantially taller than the dwarf, but obviously nowhere near as huge as the half orc. And she's relatively thin. You might even say gaunt, perhaps. Uh, she's wearing this eccentric-looking, perhaps not even very utilitarian type of khaki explorer's outfit, and she'd have like this long mane of raven-colored hair, and she'd be wearing these perhaps strangely red spectacled glasses atop her unnaturally crimson eyes, and if you knew anything about humans, you would know that would not be a normal thing. But she would just kind of look at this strange dwarf who's not a Dwergar, and she would kind of smirk, and she would say, kind of back as she kind of gets a better look at this guy, and she says, "Oh, well, Dwergar are kind of ashy and dusty, and you kind of look like that when you're covered in this nasty quagmire mud. That's an honest mistake. Uh, Maybe if we get you cleaned up, maybe I'll be able to properly identify you."
Uh, so I reply by saying, I draw my weapon not for you, but for those beasts that surely are hot on my tail.
And as you say this, no, is it pronounced Braza or Barazal? Sorry.
That's all good. So I pronounce it Barazval.
Bear's Ball.
So,
Gotcha. I can remember that. I just needed to hear it again. Okay, so Bear's Ball, Thronk, Ruby. As he says this, you hear those howls turn into um, panicked shrieks, and you kind of hear the wolves kind of like um, wince and shout out in pain before you hear them kind of scamper off. And this is all just kind of happening in the darkness ahead of you guys, about a good 90 feet out. But you can definitely hear the wolves out there just, you're just whimpering now that something's got them. And then all of a sudden, it goes quiet,
Ruby would
and the
immediately
last of
hide.
the howling stops.
Ruby would immediately hide behind the tent and try not to be noticed by whatever this foul beast is, hoping that her two brave companions or potential companions can slow it down before any murder is brought upon them.
Gotcha. Well, after you guys, after a moment or two of silence and whatnot, you begin to hear something kind of moving toward you from where those wolves were. Something kind of moving through the water rather quickly. It sounds to be about the same size as the wolf, though. As it approaches you guys from a distance, you can hear it stepping in the mud, almost like it's stalking you, almost like it's stalking your location.
all right. So I look to these strangers yet again, and I say, to be honest, I'm exhausted. I've been running for many days. Do I find you friend or foe now?
And Ruby would kind of whisper back to him, maybe almost too low for him to hear, but there would definitely be a whisper, and she would say, "If we kill this thing, you can totally be our friend. I even know medicine, so I'll put your arm back on if it gets cut off, okay? Well, maybe. I don't think I'm that good yet."
I say, I pray it does not come to this.
Yeah, you might
What
get
about?
calls off.
And then I say, what say you? So it's gray-green. So I'll just say, I'll just say gray skin because it's the light's still a bit odd.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, what say you, gray skin?
For now, you seem to be at odds with the same beast we've been fighting with. So as long as we have a common enemy, it seems we can fight together. But I'm going to keep an eye on you.
Very well. And so I will make my way. I'll relax the grip on my weapon, make my way to the outskirts of where the light stops at the edge of the camp, and turn my back on the light and look into the marsh in the direction of where these footsteps seem to be coming.
Excellent. So what you see is this figure, about the size of two wolves actually, just cautiously stalking up toward you. And as it does so, it becomes more apparent that this thing is not a wolf, it's not a cat, it's actually very lizard-like. And as it approaches you, it resembles a spined lizard with several pupilless eyes dotting its face. Its legs end in large, sharp claws that have obviously adapted for digging and burrowing. And as it approaches you, you see that it's also covered in all sorts of sharp, pointed quills all along its head and its back and its arms, and a very long, windy tail. And as it approaches, it kind of hisses at you. Its head roughly the size of a cow's. And when it opens its mouth, you see that it's full, it's chock full of sharp teeth, and it's a good 30 feet away from you now when it begins to hiss.
Okay. So in response to that, I I firm my stance on the ground, and I sort of copy what it's done by opening my mouth and baring my dwarven teeth, which are worn and clearly not dangerous by any stretch of the imagination. And I sort of make a hissing sound back at it, and then I sort of wave my hand towards it and away, and just the very surface of the ground seems to sort of all of the pebbles sort of sweep away from me in a bit of an arc, and then I stare at it, waiting to see what it will do.
Gotcha. Now, as this is happening, Corey, I have to ask you, where is the box at?
Probably in my pack.
And your pack is on your back or on the ground?
Yeah, we weren't ready to head out, right?
No, no, you weren't.
Our tents are still pitched, right?
Yep. Uh-huh.
So probably in my pack in the tent.
Okay. Um, you probably wouldn't notice it, but your pack is kind of your pack just kind of falls over and slowly begins scooting its way out of the tent like it's being dragged toward this thing. Just ever so just a little tug here and there. It doesn't seem to be enough to pull the bag completely out of the tent, but you see its attraction to this thing.
Okay. Well, yeah, I definitely wouldn't notice that because my attention is on this thing, and I'm stepping up, and I'm going to be stepping forward next to the dwarf
Uh-huh.
with
Well, yeah. Oh,
with my axe in hand, just like I was already ready to take a swing at the dwarf.
yeah.
Might as well be ready. Just keep that momentum trained on a different target.
Well, Bearsvel and Thronk and Ruby, if you're kind of peering out from where you're kind of hiding.
Yeah.
Um, this creature stops its hiss and it looks straight at you, Baronsval, and speaks without moving its lips necessarily. But you hear this voice, and all of you can kind of hear this voice just kind of emanating from it. Do any of you know Infernal?
Nope.
Let me see. I believe. Let me see. What did I write down? No, she knows Primordial and Draconic.
Okay. Well, you hear this sort of voice emanate off of it in some language that you're unable to comprehend, but it sounds very angry and it sounds very demanding of you.
And Ruby would hear this, and she would try to speak back to it in this, hissing kind of draconic voice, in this rumbling sounding primordial voice, trying to see if it can understand any other languages beyond its own.
After you say something in return to it, it just kind of it's quiet there for a moment before its mouth begins to slowly open again, and you see it begin to haunch its shoulders in a way that kind of looks like it's prepping for something.
Well, Ruby would see that and try to hide behind the tent again to prepare to strike out at this beast.
Okay, I'm gonna need everyone to roll initiative, please.
Alright. God, I can't believe none of you speak Infernal. Oh, unprepared.
So I got a. Do you just want us to write it down or just state it?
Oh, you just put it in the chat room for me.
Oh snap! Someone's getting on Arc.
Yeah, one of my friends is messaging me.
No idea what
I was
Arc is.
like, yeah, I'm busy. Awesome.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Okay. 1921 and a 4. Okay, so Ruby, you're
But
gonna jump spring into action first.
all right. Would I've already had a chance to stealth or?
Well, I don't consider stealth like a status, like in World of Warcraft, where you stealth and you're like invisible. Stealth to me is you tell me what you're doing, and your stealth roll determines how effectively you do it without being noticed.
Well, that's what I was. Her
Yeah.
stealth was literally hiding behind one of the tents,
Oh,
so I
okay,
could
yeah.
see her. That's
Okay,
what
yeah, gotcha.
So I don't know if you want me to like roll that now or whatever, but
Well,
that's what she was doing.
gotcha. Yeah, you're completely blocked from its view from where
Okay.
you were at. I'll go ahead and roll a perception check if you want to go ahead and give me what your hide would
Sure.
be then, or your stealth.
It's not particularly inspiring. That's a 14.
Excellent. Okay.
So Ruby would poke her head out, trying to not be noticed by this beast, and you would see her kind of flick one of the daggers that she's holding right at this creature, trying to strike it unaware.
Excellent.
And does it notice me? Like, do I have advantage or
Like,
no?
I'll give you advantage because, like, you did just speak to it a moment ago, but you're kind of hiding behind things, so, and you're not exactly within, you know, visible range necessarily. So, go ahead and give
Okay,
yourself advantage on that.
that would be a 19. Oh, I'm sorry, 21 to hit.
There's a 21 to hit.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this now that y'all have seen it.
All right. So you'd see this.
Mhm.
Yeah, is that a hit?
Yeah, it does hit.
All right. So you'd see this dagger kind of whiz past your guys' ear, and it would kind of stab right into like the shoulder blade of this beast. You know, trying to perhaps immobilize it or at least injure it enough that it has some sort of reaction. And the first dagger strike would do a total of 10 damage as this thing just kind of digs deep into its body. And then as quickly as that attack was made, you'd see her toss another dagger, like almost at the same time, trying to strike it down. And that would be... Fuck. Is a 13 gonna hit?
13 is not gonna hit, unfortunately.
Alright, so you'd see this second dagger fly almost at the exact same time. And it would kind of hit the creature but bounce off its scaly hide.
Excellent.
And Ruby would see that it's not dead and try to. She would move kind of back behind her allies, just using them as like a barrier between her and the monster. Uh,
Excellent.
I got it injured, guys. You can finish it off now. So, you can. I won't judge you guys. Just don't die.
All right, Baronsval, you're up next.
All right, so I can see it clearly preparing something, but I didn't understand what it said. And I guess I see these daggers fly, one piercing into its skin out of the darkness, and one just falling short, perhaps. And uh, am I able maybe to ready an action, to cast a spell if it makes a hostile move? I don't know its intent just yet. I haven't seen it do anything. I see that it's ready to do something, and I speak to it. And I'm going to speak to it in primordial. So how this sounds is you see the dwarf open his mouth next to you, Thronk, and what comes out though, it's like the rumbling of an earthquake, just slight, like less loud than an earthquake, but that's what it sounds like. So he sounds like an earthquake as he speaks, and the very pebbles under his feet sort of rumble ever so slightly. And what he says in primordial is, I do not know your kind, but if you make a move to threaten us, I must act.
Gotcha. And the thing doesn't say anything. In fact, it just kind of like continues keeping its eyes on you. Like it kind of got that you were trying to respond to it, but it couldn't understand what you were saying.
Yeah. So I've
And
just readied an action to cast a spell if it does, and that's my turn, because
Okay.
I don't know what it's going to do.
And you would see Thronk in there, just kind of like hearing this and just like looking and just like he's got the action. He's just like for a second it looks like he's just like trying to like he's expecting to have to like hold on, like he's expecting to have to brace himself. And then he just like, and then he refocuses. Sorry, not my
not a
turn.
problem. Oh, you're good. You're good. So Baronsval, this thing immediately after you say this, and it kind of gives you this look. It's kind of raised. It's like it's prepped, like it's got its haunches up, and then it kind of rolls its body forward. And as it does, you can see that it's preparing to snap its tail in your direction by the way that this thing is kind of rolling forward. And you see its quills begin to point in your direction.
All right. So
You are
in
now
that
ready.
case, yeah, in that case, a spell will go off. So what happens is that I'm gonna cast Magic Missile, but what this looks like is three stones rise from the very marsh, sort of directly in front of where the creature stands, and they rise right before its eyes, and they sort of levitate off the ground, and just before it flicks its tail, one sort of shoots around to the back of its left ear, and one shoots around to the back of its right ear, and one shoots directly at its forehead. And that deals on here. So,
Sonic boom.
Sonic boom.
Four. So a total of 6 force damage to this creature.
Each one of those is +1, so unless you roll triple ones.
So in that case, it's 9.
Excellent. Awesome. So these rocks hit it exactly where you were saying. They hit him in the side, right in the face, and it kind of distracts it for a moment. So he's going to take a disadvantage on this because I think that was a really cool way not to only attack him, but I think that would definitely distract him as well because it's hitting him right around his face while he's trying to aim this at you. So I'm going to roll this a disadvantage. Now, I'm pretty sure a 6 isn't going to hit you, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, just making sure. I have a -8 to my dex.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so this thing, as it coils back and these rocks hit it in the face, it releases this wave and it kind of flicks its whole body and these quills fly past you. And they kind of go all around you and they're kind of sticking into everything. And these quills are like 4 to 5 inches long. And there's a couple of them like caught in your rags, but somehow miraculously they'd all kind of gone around you and into your clothing, or something has stopped it. You haven't taken anything from this.
Okay. Awesome.
Now, after it does that, it kind of turns tail and scuttles back into the swamp as quickly as possible. And then Thronk, it's on you.
Okay. How far away from me is it then?
It was 30 feet when it did its attack and then turned and ran.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what I was thinking, and you can let me know how this would work out. I was thinking I was gonna just run right at it, grab the axe two hands, and come down on it. But if he's running away, gotta be.
I got you. Well, I'll do this. I'll allow you to attack him before he successfully turned and run, because you've been kind of standing there prepped to fight this thing. So I'll give you an attack of opportunity if you choose.
Okay. Well, I mean,
With
I was away from it, and my attack is
Yeah.
going to be to run up on it. But
Gotcha.
I was prepared for an explanation for why I can't do it, but yeah,
No,
I'm going to.
If that's what you want to do, yeah, do it. I'm all for saying yes.
So I've got the axe over my head already,
Yeah.
ready there. I'm just going to start running at this thing. It's screaming, guttural sound that you think maybe only an orc could really pull off. Right? And as I'm ready to, as I get near it, I'm going to come down, aiming right about the middle of its back with this axe. For people who don't know what a boarding axe is, it's kind of like a fire axe. So the head isn't actually all that big. They're designed for chopping down a door if there's a fire on a ship or something. So it's a curved blade. The head is only maybe like that big. So it's not a huge axe, but it is designed for an orc ship. So it is larger than what most people would be used to. But the handles are long, so I'm going to grab it with the other hand and just try to come down on it.
Excellent.
And that is going to be a 16 to hit.
16 does hit.
All right, and that will be a 7 damage.
7 damage. Awesome. And this thing lets out like a hiss, and it like snaps its head back to look at you, Corey, and just gives you like the nastiest snarl, like it's just pissed at you.
And almost in return, there's going to be this like a almost like a hiss, like a grunt back at it.
Gotcha, but
that's right on the dominant one here.
But after this little exchange happens, that's when it makes its run, and it begins running off into the swamp, and you just see this trail of blood falling behind it, but it's not what you'd expect. It's like an inky kind of black blood, and as it's kind of dropping onto the ground, it almost immediately disappears after it kind of hits the ground. Like it hits the ground, sits there, little black dot, and then just kind of fades away.
All right.
Wait. It ran away completely, or did it disappear into the mist?
Well, its speed is 30, so it's gone another 30 feet away. So it's 60 feet away, no, double time, so that would be 90. It's about 90 feet away from you. Because it has run back into the mist.
Okay.
And your box, Corey, you notice your bag is no longer moving around.
Okay. Well, I never noticed it. I'll notice it when I come back in toward the camp.
Gotcha.
We might notice that the bag has moved on its own to get out of where it's supposed to be.
I'll be pissed at someone for moving it.
Right. You guys kind of come back, and for the sake of story, Drygon was so drunk he passed out, and Laughing Fox was too, or something. So.
Or something.
So all of this did not wake them. They have slept so hard. It's like the first peaceful sleep they've had.
Right on the road, right after the attack by the wolves that were eating themselves and stuff.
Right?
No, we're finally gonna get a good night's sleep.
Slept like a baby.
I believe we're gonna have a talk with Dragon about his alcoholism. It's highly unprofessional. In his,
I'm sure he's fine. Who
he-
hasn't had a few nights like that?
yes, but they've been consecutive nights. I believe that is 3 nights in a row. I believe it's a strict 2 policy. I made an exception, so he may not be he may be getting his termination papers.
So as this creature sort of like runs and disappears, you hear another rumble in the earth, and the words that are spoken are "I did warn you," but don't know if it understands. And then I will lower my weapon and I will turn to Thronk and I'll sort of shrug and I'll say, "It seems we drove it away."
Right. Yeah, and I'll be like turning and walking back because the things obviously run off, and it's like, yeah, I don't think we're going to have much more trouble with that thing. Walking back, and I've just got the axe kind of over my shoulder.
Have you ever seen anything like it?
No, we've been dealing with wolves that have been, I don't know, they've been crazed or
I believe they're
half-eaten,
sort of plague.
not like that.
Some sort of plague that they have the fortitude to half survive. Well, they sort of are. I don't know if they even count as alive. They look like they're on the edge of life and death. Yeah.
And then I say to her, I say, "Well, we did not kill it, and your words were, if we killed it, I could be your friend. What say you now?"
She would think for a moment and she would say, "Well, I mean, the verbal contract was rather clear, but I'm open to renegotiation."
At hearing the term negotiations, Thronk is just kind of continuing to walk back toward his tent. He's going to go and find something to wipe off his blade. And I imagine that, like, just kind of single-mindedly going toward the tent, he's going to stumble over his pack.
Yeah.
Like, what is this doing out here? Ruby, did you move my bag?
No, if you remember, I was talking with you for like the past hour, and I think our drunk friends don't share a tent with you, so who knows? She would kind of ignore him now, and she would look to the strange dwarf who claims not to be a Dwergar, but there's only one true way to know.
By the way,
And,
Corey, I'm sorry, Joseph, go ahead and finish.
And you'd see her kind of fish in her bag. She'd pull out this like somewhat nice-looking towel. And she would throw it at him, and she would say, "You should get cleaned up unless you know some magic tricks to get clean."
He says, "I speak to the earth itself. I do not know such magic tricks." And he says, "But thank you. I will do what you say." And he takes some time to clear off the caked mud that seems to be like drying. The layers closer to his skin are like dried on, so he has to like, you know, get out his water canteen and you know, dampen the cloth to peel it off, and you can see it even peels off the first layer of skin as he peels this hardened clay off his face.
Now, Ruby would kind of smirk and say, "You know, pigs do that a lot too. Are you a pig farmer, or are you just like running through the swamp for like 3 days straight?"
You don't listen, do you?
Well, I mean, I was just making a remark about. Do you have pigs where you come from? Do you know what a pig is?
Yes, I know what a pig is. I have
Alright.
been a slave most of my life.
Do they have pig slaves?
I shake my head and just mutter something underneath my breath, and
You,
I don't really know how to respond to him, so.
you see Ruby would pull out a piece of paper and start writing down, "Do I ever have pig slaves?" Question mark.
And Thronk, while you were over there kind of questioning about the bag and things, and you look down, you can kind of see that there's like drag marks where the bag was drug to where it's at. You can see where it was sitting, and this is kind of very obvious in the dirt and the sands there.
Right. Well, I will. My first priority is going to be to check the bag and make sure all of my stuff is in it. And,
Gotcha.
so I imagine somewhere around the campfire, wherever we were sitting,
Mhm.
I'd grab the bag and take it back over there. Seeing the drag marks going back into the tent, I'll go and look in the tent in a bit. But
And after seeing him do this, Ruby would gasp and remember, and you'd see her nervously look around for like blood. You said the thing had like black ichor was falling out of its body when it got stabbed. The strange lizard monster.
Yeah, it was black.
Okay. Well, she'd quickly find the dagger she missed with, and then she would look around nervously. Is the other dagger here? And she would kind of just glance around nervously, trying to find her weapon, hoping it fell out of the depraved creature that so cowardly fled the scene.
The dagger is not there.
Oh,
Ruby would be very distraught at this, and she would say, no, the creature that stole my dagger, we have to get it back. And then after she'd say that and look out into the mist, she would say, or maybe we can get it in the morning.
well,
I dare say. Go ahead.
our tracker is drunk in the tent, so perhaps the morning would be best. At this point, I kind of figured that because I figured I'd be looking through the bag the entire time. Ruby was talking to the dwarf about terms and about joining the group and all that stuff. So I figured at this point I probably will pull out a ration, whatever I have, um, and I don't know Barisville if where you're at or what you're doing at this point.
Um, I've just sort of shaken my head at this woman's remark about pig farming, not knowing how to sort of react to her, and I guess I would look over to you, and I would sort of say, "You look troubled. Is there something on your mind?"
Is our I don't think I've ever been accused of having too much on my mind before, but
Well, there was that one time, remember, when you had that you were trying to strangle me the other day. Yeah, that on your mind.
I guess I don't recall thinking much then either.
She would kind of smirk and say, "A likely story."
But I'll have a ration out in a dagger, and I'll like cut off a chunk of whatever jerked meat or whatever would be in there, and offer it to the dwarf.
Oh, really? Okay, so you see his eyes like go like wide as like crazy wide, and he like looks around and he looks back at you and he sort of tentatively like inches his feet forward, unsure, and you can see him like almost visibly salivating at the sight of real meat.
Here, boy. Here, boy. No. And I would be. I don't know. Because we've made this camp. It's not like a spot where people have camped before, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So we haven't like cut we haven't cut stumps or anything to sit on, and I highly doubt we were traveling with chairs on our horses. So
Yeah.
I'm probably just squat down by the fire.
Okay.
So
You could put like a fallen tree down by the fire.
so I'm squatted down, so I'm not like towering over you at the moment, and it's just it's like as you're coming over, it's just like, all right, like here you go, like take it.
Yeah, and so Bariswell does. He does take it, and when he puts it in his mouth, you can see him taking the most time possible to like taste every inch of the meat, and you can see like that it sort of rolls over his tongue. You can see his eyes like roll back into his head as he tastes real meat for the first time in probably like 20 years.
Look like you're used to eating rocks. You okay?
As I have said numerous times now, I have been a slave. We have been fed bread, stale bread, and dirty water. Very rarely is a meal is a morsel such as this presented to us. I am very greedy.
I think I would be a really bad slave because I would just like steal all the food and not get caught.
You would most likely be slain on the spot.
They'd never catch me. I'm too fast.
So you say.
Too clever.
Many tried, and many failed.
And
you only know about the ones who failed. You see, nobody ever brags about doing it, except for me. I would do it. I would brag.
And like being able to tell that obviously Bariswell, whether he's lying or not about the slave thing, he's obviously starving. So and being just a days out of the thing, and having been in tough situations before, he was just kind of like, you can have the rest of this. It'll be fine. We should be into the fort tomorrow.
Fort. There's a fort.
Yeah. Yes, we're taking these horses to the fort, and we're inquiring about an ale shipment.
Is it safe there? I have been on the run for many days.
Ruby would smirk and say, "Well, it's safe right here. You have the most noble band of adventurers around. We would never let our allies die."
You mean those drunk men that you claim to know in your tents?
Well, it's a plurality, okay? A plurality of us are. Well, then, so you think about plurality, and well, a very brave minority of us would minority. She would just nod her head. Yeah, a minority of us are great brave adventurers.
And,
so you say, you who hid in the shadows, throwing daggers.
I don't know. My dagger seemed to do a pretty good job. He fled in terror of my ferocious attacks.
So I'm gonna have a cloth out. I'm gonna have pulled a rag out of my bag that I'm gonna use to clean the blood off of my axe. You said it was disappearing as soon as it was falling before. Is the same true for the axe?
That is correct. The blood that was on your weapons is kind of completely faded, but kind of left almost like, how you'll leave water, like circles on your coffee table from a cup that's been sweating, right? It's kind of got that kind of a residue going on, where you could tell that something was there, but it's now gone, and it's left some sort of residue behind. It's kind of black and like grainy, almost salty feeling.
So I'll look at that like, Ruby, have you seen anything like this before?
She would kind
Seems
of
the blood is dried.
she'd kind of peer over his shoulder as he's kind of sitting down and take a look at the strange object, trying to go back to her internal catalog from the years working at the library as a professor.
Definitely. You could use. Well, what knowledge would you like to? Would you think fits this the best?
Oh, I mean, well, there's Arcana.
Arcane would be good.
Alright, well, she uses her vast, extensive knowledge of Arcana, teaching it to wizards on a regular basis, even though she has no idea how to actually cast spells. And that would be a 26.
Wow.
That is excellent. From what you're seeing here, like judging by the thought of like blood drying almost immediately and disappearing, like it's evaporating, and you kind of think also of the Wutrad. Oh, sorry, the thing that you guys fought before, which I just gave the name of. Which anyway,
The thing we just fought, or the big thing from
The
before?
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
the Marshmallow Man.
Okay.
You think of the blood that came from that thing as well, how it dripped upward, but it was the same black, kind of inky kind of blood. And you kind of put the two together that, in combination with what you know from looking at the dried blood on this, you can kind of tell that this is like the blood of a fiend, of demons.
Oh, okay. So, Ruby would be, oh, well, I know what this is. This is demon blood. You know, like devils, sort of. But they're probably not very nice. I'm sure it's perfectly normal for demons to live in the swamp. I mean, generally they prefer more brimstone, but occasionally, you know, they might move around to the surface. And then she thinks about it and she starts writing down notes. Devils living in swamp. Further investigation required.
This is very disturbing news. Demon so close to the fort. Perhaps we should warn them when we get there.
Seems wise.
I know, like not they don't.
Now,
The fort doesn't necessarily have a powerful rogue to throw daggers through these beasts and protect the land. They'll need our help.
now, Ruby, when you say devil, is this based on? How certain are you? Is this like the were mud golems?
Oh no, that was purely speculation. Well, an educated guess, but no, I've seen anatomy books on demons and devils, and I actually remember teaching a course about them. Strange creatures of the outer planes. Well, I don't know if you'd call it planes. It's the 9 levels of hell. But it was all strictly theoretical, of course. I had never been there, but no, it followed the same rules as what most devils would follow.
Oh, I miss the sea.
So, what do you guys decide to do for the rest of the night?
Ruby would look over to Barzval, and she would kind of examine his injuries from his many days of running away from monsters and trudging through the swamp. And she would say, "Do you need any medical assistance? I can totally fix you right up." Well, I can't fix the scars. The scars are usually kind of permanent.
Yeah, so more prevalent than his time in the swamp, you do see very significant whip marks all over his skin. Obviously, there's nothing you can do about them. You can see that he's quite heavily fatigued, but considering he's been trenching through the swamp for a couple of days, he's in remarkably decent health. And though he is tired and has, scrapes and, possibly, little bits of, blood, he's mostly intact. So for the effectiveness of mechanics, he is on full health. It's just he's very fatigued and clearly has marks on his skin to signify his ordeal.
Yeah, you seem to be okay. You just need to rest. However long you need to hibernate, 8 hours, I hope. Hopefully not any longer. And should kind of take a seat and look around the camp, I guess, while her allies do what they have to do.
Yeah, so I sort of say, well, if you will have me, I will share your watch and ensure that we all get a decent rest. I will even take the first one if you wish, but then I must rest myself.
Ruby would think about this for a moment, and she would kind of remember and gasp. And you'd see her fumble through her bags, and you'd see her pull out this piece of paper. She would present it to you, and she would say, well, you need to sign on the dotted line. This is a contractual agreement. It states that you will get one share equal to your amount of personhood, which in this case will be one. You are one person. And your share will be commensurate to your work as well. There is hazard pay, of course, but that is included in your pay. She just kind of rattles on and on and on about this contract and just hands it to him for him to sign, kind of wanting him to finalize the agreement, the verbal agreement.
So Bariswell will look over to the half-orc and he'll sort of say, did you have to observe this formality?
Ruby would totally not.
If you get used to Ruby, you let me know the secret. But yes. And while she was talking, while Ruby was going over the things, you would have seen Thronk give like a giant eye roll. Like,
Oh, and then before he can sign it, though, she would put a little addendum at the bottom. And if you oversleep 3 consecutive days in a row, I've reserved the right to terminate your contract. And consecutive is like underlined.
So Bariswell sort of scrunches his forehead and he's very unsure. He sort of says, does this mean that I am beholden to you, or can I leave if that is my want?
Oh no, the contract simply states that neither party will attempt to murder each other. That's a very important part of the contract. See, murdering one or the other is kind of detrimental to our job. But beyond that, you are free to quit the contract at any time. But by quitting early, you forfeit all future rights to wealth that we're going to earn.
Thor, no.
Only future, not present, of course.
Wealth. How are you obtaining this wealth that you speak of? I do not understand.
She would kind of think for a moment, and she said, well, you're a slave, right? So wealth is kind of like when you mine rocks and you give them to your slave owners, and then they sell them for stuff. But instead of giving
Yes, I know what wealth is. How are you obtaining it?
Oh, well, I didn't know that slaves knew anything about wealth. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna go, and we're gonna see. The contract states that it's while you were present. See, and this is prior to your presidency, and we're gonna turn in this contract. This we might sell out this house we obtained earlier, but in the meantime, we are currently working between jobs, and our employers pay substantial amounts. And she would like show him like a silver coin, as if it's like some priceless artifact,
Yeah.
and present it to him. See these? Like
Well,
we get paid
yeah.
in these. We get stacks of these.
And he says, so you get paid to do these tasks.
Yeah, it's like when your boss tells you to mine rocks, except instead of getting a slightly livable amount of food, we get these silver coins that we can change in for food. and water.
Right. So
And jail.
Barazal sort of says, "This sounds acceptable then," and he will sign, uh, sort of out of the corner of his eye. He'll roll his eyes at the half orc, acknowledging what he said before. But yes, he will sign the contract to say that he won't murder anybody.
That's great to hear because you know verbal contracts are worth the paper that they're written on. And then after she does that, she would kind of look at the signature. Oh, this is a lot more legible than the half orc. I don't know if you can actually read. And she would kind of smile and tuck the paper away in her bag.
Well, something that is of note would be that the signature would actually be in his common, in his actual tongue in Dwarvish. So it would actually be in rune form.
Okay.
Yeah.
She would recognize that it's obviously not common. She wouldn't be able to read it very well, but compared to what the half orc probably scrawled out, it probably looks magnificent.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine would be in a mark. It would probably look fairly runic, but it would be like an orcish. It's just like it's my mark. I'm illiterate, but I know how to symbol myself in writing.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was at the time she was gonna ask if she needed to like roll like ink over his finger and then press it on the paper, but he managed to scrawl something out.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess we take our watch and see if anything happens through the night.
Ruby would agree. Well, I think you should take last watch, so you can maybe get some rest and not fall asleep during the middle of your watch. Because if you fell asleep during the watch, that would definitely be a strike against you. Because in Article 3, it says any mistakes that cause bodily harm to your allies will be duly noted, and compensation will be redirected appropriately.
I can assure you I could stay awake for a few hours yet. However, if you wish, I will take the last watch.
That would be fantastic.
At least they're telling you you're taking a watch.
Yeah, you're gonna have to renegotiate terms with the others. Their competency is not up to my standards.
So you see Barazval clearing a piece of ground. Now, is the whole marsh marshy, or is there some dry parts on the ground?
Well, you guys have kind of picked out the driest of the marshy parts, so it's definitely not like you're like where you're kind of standing. It's kind of like a combination of dirt and sands and bits of grass and patches and things. And
All
the
right.
area kind of surrounding you is more marshy and wet.
Yeah. So Barazval will find a piece of this dirt sand, and he will go over to it, and he will draw with his toe in the sand this runic pattern, and then he will sort of flatten out his hands and hover them over the ground, and the whole land mass beneath him will just rise about 3 or 4 inches higher than it is, and it'll sort of, and then he'll just like curl himself up on this slightly higher ground, and the dust sort of settles and makes itself into this sort of soft dust bedding, and that seems to be what he's sleeping on.
While you're manipulating the ground and stuff, Thronk would be would stand up more from where he's squatting, and it's like he'll have his beat ready at his axe and he's kind of backing away, looking at you doing that, kind of looking down at the ground, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but this ain't right.
Wrong. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is grab a handful of dirt, just start piling it up. That's the sorcerer way of doing it.
I see that the half orc is clearly disturbed, and I say, "Peace, my friend. I have no such means as you to find my rest. Such things as these tents and bedding. This is my way. This is all I have. Perhaps when we get back to the fort, I may be able to purchase something then, but till then, this is what I must live with."
Ruby would kind of lean over and whisper to the half orc. See, this must mean he's a slave, because only a slave would be used to sleeping on a rock.
Yeah.
We've heard among the orcs there are rumors of those called the Earth Callers. Are you one of them?
Out of character, is that a thing, or are you just? No.
Yep, I just made it.
Okay. I say, it is true. I speak to the earth. However, I can claim no link to any organization, as I have been a slave, and I do not know whence these people come. But I do speak with the earth, and it does obey.
Oh, one thing out of character about this world: orcs are generally seafaring people in this setting. They're all like sailors and pirates.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if your character would know that necessarily, being a slave and whatnot. But
He's probably come across orc slaves. I imagine that the Dorga wouldn't not take orc slaves. So he's probably come across some, and they would probably have told him a little bit. So he would know generic stuff. So yeah.
It's just kind of, I was just running with it in my head, like, the orcs are seafaring people and someone who's controlling the earth, and like it's a little odd to them. So it's their own boogeyman, or maybe more. We'll see. We'll see what actually happens out of that. But
Yeah, Ruby would be like, yeah, Earth Callers are strictly a fictional creature. They're
says you.
They're
Unlike
almost,
those werewolf mud golem things, right?
you know what? The absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Just remember that, okay?
So Barriswell will say, "This is not the first time I have heard of these. Other orcs have said such things, but I have not met any of these such earth callers. But peace. If you wish, I shall not do this anymore in your presence."
Oh, don't worry about it. You know, I think they're just superstitious. They've crashed into too many icebergs, trying to blame dwarves on their bad sailing. You know how it is.
I would not attempt to tell you not to do what comes naturally to you, but know that I will. But understand that I view these things with caution.
And Barriswell sort of nods his head and he says, I understand your words, and I will be cautious with it. However, if we are to be attacked, the only way I have of defending myself and potentially help assisting you is with the power of the earth itself.
Yeah, maybe he'll give you some like earth armor, or like cover you in mud, and then like you can, and he'll freeze it into like rocks. And Ruby would obviously have no idea what she's talking about, but
it would be good to have an earth caller helping.
I will do what I can. And then I'll just settle down to rest until it's my watch.
Yeah, let's go to sleep. You can take first watch. I'll take second, and then our sleepy dwarven buddy will take the third watch.
Okay.
All right. So you guys, we're gonna kind of jump forward here to the next morning because as you guys are kind of, cycling through your watch, nothing seems to come up to kind of trigger your guys' defenses of any sort. Nothing kind of comes close enough, and the sounds of the swamp just kind of die down as morning comes, and the mist is kind of clearing away. Now, let's see. We do this in D&D fashion. Roll for it. Okay, so Thronk, when it is your turn and you're just kind of sitting there, looking out and things, you're kind of thinking about those words that you heard that you couldn't understand that came from this thing from the swamp. You're just kind of there with your own thoughts about it, and you slowly start to kind of nod off, you're just kind of looking around and you kind of nod off, and I need a fortitude save from you.
That's a Constitution.
Yeah. Sorry, so used to 3.5.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Right there.
That's
So
a
3.5.
That's a modified 20.
Excellent. So you don't necessarily just fall asleep or nothing, but I believe that you do get to rest after your watch is done, correct?
Yeah, I'm on first watch.
Okay. So you kind of go through the whole watch things. You feel just drained and exhausted as soon as you finish up and you're able to get down into bed. And when you do fall asleep, this exhaustion just kind of continues as you're resting. And you're kind of tossing and turning. And it's not like you're dreaming about a whole lot before you begin to think about that voice again. And it's kind of echoing in your head.
I
And,
imagine that.
Mhm.
I imagine that as on my watch, especially when I'm awake, more or less for this. As it happens, I'm going to be squeezing, not just uh, rolling my onyx in my hand, but squeeze down on it
Yeah.
when this is happening. And I imagine that that's happening even when I'm sleeping, subconsciously.
Yeah. And yeah, while you're just kind of holding on to this thing, when you go back to bed, it's warmer because you've gotten closer to that box in your bag. And it's definitely warmer in your palm, and you're just kind of fiddling around with it. You're thinking of those words, and you doze off, kind of dropping the obsidian onto the ground, or maybe you just drop it onto your chest or something like that. But you kind of go into a very relaxed state where everything just kind of fades away for a moment before those words begin repeating themselves. And those words kind of slowly transform from the dark guttural sounds that they had when you heard them come from the creature, presumably a demon, to something you can understand, to common. And actually, it comes to you in the form of a couple of omens. And you recognize these omens as they're kind of coming over you. And it's that there's demons in this swamp. And it kind of fills you with that same dread that you would get when you would see some sort of bad omen in the sky, like maybe a certain kind of cloud or some like an eagle carrying. What is a pretty common bad omen, like an eagle carrying a snake or something?
Yeah.
Things of that nature. I can't remember what they were. Or seeing ravens in inappropriate places or times.
Yeah. Well, seeing pretty much any bird in the wrong spot.
Yeah. You're just kind of thinking about these ill omens until these words kind of finally make sense. Almost like your understanding of fear is what has translated it to you.
Okay.
And the words kind of come out of your head that it's calling, "Come to me. Come to me, I demand it. The witches must have you." And you think of you think of the box and the bag, and it begins to kind of rumble for just a moment. And you kind of hear it rattling, and you're picturing the box in your head, and you imagine it kind of rumbling like something's trying to get out of it before it kind of calms back down. And this is sort of like the omen, the vision that you see through the night. And when you awake the next morning, you feel completely exhausted, and your face and your hands look a little more red than usual. And you're going to have 1 point of exhaustion.
Okay. I will find a spot to mark that on this character sheet.
Which I will read exhaustion off for you here in a second. I just got to grab it. It's one of the
Disadvantage on
appendixes.
all ability checks.
Oh, is that all that it is? Oh, here it is, exhausted. Level 1, disadvantage on all ability checks, and if it increases, it's got additional things that start going wrong for you. Okay?
Okay.
Would it be morning now?
It is now morning, and the sun is kind of coming over the trees in a way that is kind of lighting up the mist. To where the mist doesn't look so dark. It's actually kind of like white, like like a white fog or a white blanket. It's just covering everything.
Right? Well, Ruby would kind of get up out of bed and just yawn like ridiculously loud, and it'd be like, "Ah." And she would kind of walk out of her tent and look around at her companions, and she would see the half orc would look just dog tired, and she would smirk and say, "You must have done the sleeping for both of you, because the dwarf doesn't look so tired anymore." Like transfer sleep? I don't think that's a thing.
As you're speaking, you look over to the dwarf who is just finishing up his watch, and you notice that he has these smoothed, sort of almost disc-shaped stones that are like laid out in a semicircle pattern, sort of in front of him, and you see him like pick one of these stone discs up and look into it, like almost like he's reading something, and you see his mouth like move, like he's reciting something, and you see him sort of look up to the sky and look down to the earth, and then place the stone back to the ground, and then move to the next one.
Ruby would look at this, and she would kind of be puzzled for a moment, and she would say, "Is this some sort of divination magic, or are you reading these stones like some sort of book? Dwarves like read spell books in like stone or something. That's kind of weird."
So Barasval will reply, and he'll say, "We were not permitted writing materials. In my slavery, I had to secret these away. They did not care that I had rocks and stones in my possession, for they are useless. And there I etched into them the very magic that I use to move and speak with the earth. Here, gaze into this if you wish."
Fascinating. You steal rocks, but you don't steal food. You're a very peculiar dwarf. And she would kind of hunch over and look at his spell writing, and maybe try to decipher a bit of it, but not press too much into it.
It's all in Dwarven, all runes.
Yeah, she wouldn't know how to read Dwarven, so she would just kind of shrug and say, "Well, normally people write their spells in Draconic, but that's okay. I guess dwarves can use their own language."
So, as you guys are getting up, you notice that there's someone missing, actually. And
Uh,
looking around,
okay.
you can see that Drygon and Lucio still there, but Laughing Fox has mysteriously disappeared. And left behind has been a note. And who was the last person on watch?
Oh no, that was me!
Now, Bearisvel, I need a fortitude save from you. I'll let you
Okay.
take it. I'll let you take it at advantage because you had already rested.
Okay. Um, con. So I got a total of 15.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, you're easily able to stay awake for this. But what you see is Laughing Fox kind of get up out of her tent with all of her packs and everything, and she approaches you and just hands you a note. Doesn't say anything to you. Just hands you a note and then nods and runs down the road, heading north back toward. You don't know where it's headed toward actually, but she just gets up, hands you this note, runs down the road, and you kind of look at the note for a moment, and it's written in common because she wanted to make sure everyone could read it, and she didn't stop to talk to you because like you guys don't have any idea who each other are, but she
Yeah.
kind of like slaps this note to you, nods, and just goes. And
Alright.
when you read this note, it says, um, it says, I've had a vision of something terrible in the primordial darkness, and I have to return. A spirit came to me in my dreams, and I have to return to my people now. Continue on without me. I wish you all the best of luck.
Okay.
And and that's all that the
Okay.
note says.
Yeah. So as soon as I show this stone to Ruby, I say, there is one more thing that you should see, and I pass him the note that she passed to me, uh, and I say, it seems your companion, oh, one of your companions has taken the option to leave. I did not know whether to stop her, but you said that at any time we can choose to leave. So I chose to let her go, and she left this note.
Ruby would hear that and nod, and she'd say, "Well, okay," and she'd write down Laughing Fox forfeits future earnings, and then you'd see beneath it says house, and then there would be like an up arrow next to it, like, yes, maybe we should do that now. Okay, yeah. Well, Laughing Fox, she didn't seem to have her heart in it, you know. She was just going on about elf privilege and saving the world and all that fun jazz. She was a very strange individual. I'm sure she has very important things to do in the Verdant or the Quagmire Marsh or wherever she's going. She has lots of important stuff like slaying dragons and talking down to other races. You know how that is, elf stuff.
I hope I have done the right thing by letting her go.
And she would kind of think for a moment, well, I mean, technically less people is not as good, but think of it like this: there's more loot for the rest of us.
And Lucia kind of gets her things together and packs it up, and walks over to you, Ruby, holding out a canteen of water, and says, "How you doing this morning, Ruby? Would you like some water?"
Ruby would kind of nod and lift the water container out of her hand, and she would kind of curiously sniff it and say, "Oh yeah, is it just water?"
And she kind of looks at you for a moment like she's confused, and then she's like, "Hold on a second," and she pulls another canteen out of her other pocket, and she takes the one out of your hand and sniffs the top, like sniffs into both of them, and then hands you the one she handed to you first and said, "Yeah, it's the water one."
And Ruby would kind of just cover her face with a hand and say, "I hope you know proper cleaning procedures." And she would look at the disheveled-looking individual, and then she would just think about it for a moment. It's like, yeah, there's some cross-contamination going on here. Thank you. And she would take a drink, but she would totally do sleight of hand to make it look like she's drinking, but she's not. That would be like a 10 on the check. But she's like, yeah, thank you for the water. It's amazing.
And Lucia, she's not really like paying a whole lot of attention. Like she's already putting the other one away, so she didn't really watch you take the drink. So when you hand it back to her, she just puts the lid back on and said, "I almost mixed it up with the eggs."
The eggs. Oh, I thought you were just like Drygon and you were just an alcoholic. Huh.
Oh no! As a matter of fact, and here's a tasty treat. And she kind of holds up the one that she put away, the one that you didn't drink out of, and says, "This has the eggs of the Bastille."
Eggs of what?
Of the Bastille, a nasty little creature. All sorts of them around here in the swamp too. They would call them the bane of fresh water. You see what they do is they're like parasites. They lay their little eggs in the water, and the people drink it, and then the eggs come out, and it's not so good for whoever drinks the water.
Yeah, that's kind of strange. You seem to have you like drinking this parasite water?
Oh no, but it's sure funny when you see it, when you see what comes out of someone when they do.
Yeah. And Ruby would just kind of look to her allies and say, "Yeah, thank you for the water. I'm sure glad you seem like a very nice person. Very, very generous. Thank you. I would offer you some of my water, but I think you kind of like your own stuff." She would kind of wink and then nod and say, "Yeah, maybe we should get going to anywhere but here."
And she just kind of like smiles and nods and says, "Let's get going," and like puts her moose head hat back on. And by the way, Baronville, you're seeing this for the first time. This kind of crazy, mangy kind of looking woman with like missing teeth and like messed up looking eyes. She's got a hat that is like, if you were to imagine like a taxidermied moose head that had like holes cut in it for eyes, you could just pop onto your head with the antlers sticking off. That's kind of what she's wearing.
All right.
And she slips it onto her head like it's a hat and begins approaching the horses to get on it with Drygon.
Barisval has no physical reaction to this. He might be thinking stuff inside, but he doesn't say anything. He certainly doesn't flinch or anything like that. He just watches.
And Drygon and her get on the same horse. So,
All right.
So,
how many horses are there?
Well, there's actually a free one now because of Laughing Fox leaving. So there's now 4 horses in total.
All right. Barisval's never ridden a horse. Does it look like to him that everyone else is hopping on a horse?
Yeah, everyone else is just hopping on a horse.
All right. So
actually, I'm not. I shouldn't have said that.
We have
Because
an
you
extra
guys can
horse.
tell me. Yeah, you guys can tell me how you guys are with your horses. I didn't mean to jump the gun there, but go ahead and tell me. Um, you guys just get on your horse. I mean, you've been riding so far without any issues, correct?
Yeah, I believe weren't we delivering a shipment of horses to begin with, and we had extras with us?
Well, no,
No,
you
we're
just have the four.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I remember because the crazy druid lady hopped on my character's horse.
Yep.
That's right. Is
no,
she
we
still
aren't
with us,
delivering the
or
horses, but we're
is she
riding them.
is the crazy druid lady staying with us?
Yeah, like I said, she hopped on the horse with Drygon.
Oh, with Drygon.
Yeah.
Ruby would look over to Barrisval, and how heavy does he look?
Uh, in well, uh, in exact terms, he's 193 pounds. So he would look, I guess, the average male human weight.
He's carrying how much stuff as well? I'm just curious, all together.
He
Or
doesn't
breakfast.
have much in his pack. You can see that it's fairly light, but he is wearing a chain shirt underneath his cloak.
Okay, yeah. You could tell by looking at Ruby. She's like over like a foot taller than you, and you could tell she probably weighs like 70 pounds less than you. But she obviously has a bit more gear than you. Perhaps being prepared to be an adventurer. She would say,
Yeah.
I mean, you could hop on my horse, I guess. I don't know if the horse would like carrying 400 pounds, but I'm sure the horse could tough it out or die trying.
So Barasval grunts, I guess, and he'll be like, he'll sort of say, "It is okay, my lady. I will attempt to ride this one over here. Now, this thing it looks like you could fit a shoe in it. I guess I could lift my leg and put my arm, and you can see that he's clearly not knowing. Can I maybe roll something to see whether I can get up on there?
Sure. Go ahead and give me a. Isn't there a handle animal?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a handle animal.
All
Or an
right.
athletics if you prefer, or acrobatics.
Oh no, that's just fine. That's perfect.
Okay.
Because I got a 3. That's perfect. So yeah, you can see him like grabbing onto like the saddle, and if you permit it, what I would love to do is that the saddle wasn't properly clasped, and so like
Yeah.
he grabs onto the saddle and like he goes to maneuver himself up, and he pulls the entire saddle off the horse, and it like lands on his head.
Whose
And
horse is this?
this is the one Laughing Fox had. By the
Oh, okay.
way, Ruby and Corey, you guys, most of the dwarves that you guys have known and seen and heard of have been fantastic with horses because the saddle dwarves are primarily the surface dwelling dwarves, and they have like their entire culture is around horses and mounts and whatnot, and living in the desert, riding horses and bands together and things. So when you see him kind of do this, you definitely tell he's not the same kind of dwarf that you've heard of or might have known in the past.
Ruby would kind of lean over and whisper to the half orc, and she would say, "He's either a, he's either like really committed to lying to us about being a dwarf, but he's just really bad at being a dwarf."
I I don't even know, but I will. Having just been like clearly out of it all morning, not really interacting, very minimal. Just very perfunctory in everything he's doing. Just gets off the horse, swings over, goes over and grabs the saddle off of the dwarf, throws it back over the horse, and just starts like strapping it down. Thronk's not the greatest with horses, but he's gotten used to them in the time that he's been exiled to the land.
I
So
got you.
he's got the basics down, at least better than this dwarf seems to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, after you saddle it properly and adjust the stirrups so that his tiny legs can like fit in them, he will manage to get on okay.
And he'll be like using his strength to like help move you up.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're short.
So you'll see that he sort of sits uncomfortably on top of the horse, and he's like looking at you guys, trying to figure out, like trying to copy what you guys are doing.
Ruby would
the
see
horse.
this. Ruby would see this, and she would smirk, and she would try to sit side saddle, all fancy, like she was something, just to confuse him. She would say, "Yeah, you can sit sideways or normal ways. They're both kind of the same. Just the goal is to not fall off. Okay."
Alright,
when you
so
fall off, it usually hurts a little bit.
yeah, I guess if we have to maneuver anywhere that's more than like that's either difficult terrain, or if it's like especially muddy or anything like that, then he'll need to make another check. But I don't know how you want to rule him being able to. He's going to struggle, but.
I gotcha. Well, these horses are actually pretty well trained, having been trained by the saddle dwarves and then exchanged to the Mineran army. So they're definitely very well trained and handled. So your horse just kind of knows to follow the others. And so, in a way, you're kind of getting a little more comfortable in the fact that the horse kind of knows what to do.
Yeah.
It knows to follow the others, and by doing so, by just remaining still, pretty much, you're able to fairly ride on this thing without too much hazard.
Yeah, and he's intelligent enough to sort of just go along with things. He just hasn't really had experience with a pack animal before.
I gotcha. So you guys travel all day, or excuse me, all morning and all afternoon until you finally reach Fort Sinclair, and it's like the late afternoon, early evening-ish when you guys finally get there, having to kind of stop, use the restroom here or there, or having to stop to, take a drink of your waters or let the horses rest, or something, but no dangers seem to stop you guys. Nothing seems to come up that kind of stops you, or sort of causes you to question things. But as you kind of get into Fort Sinclair, the road kind of winds into a fort. There's kind of like an archway on the left side of this big stone wall, and the stone wall is kind of like partially crumbling in at parts of it, kind of like it's fallen under disrepair and no one's actually repaired it. So they just kind of like piled stone there to kind of like signify, well, this is still a wall, but it's kind of not a wall no more. But there's this archway on the left side. You guys kind of go into it, and the road comes in one archway and out another archway. But you can see that this is the main gate to the fort, obviously, because when you look inside, you see that there's a stone building that's kind of connected into the walls in the corner. And it's roughly about 50 feet wide and like 30 feet coming out. And there's a couple of caravans parked in front of it, like merchants, obviously, who have kind of parked here because they've kind of gotten trapped here in the road, or maybe they just haven't left the area yet. And off to the right, you see that there's a tavern in the corner, as well as a blacksmith who's outside hammering away, fixing some tools and things. And there's also a storage shed kind of right there in the center in front of you. But the thing that kind of really interests you is that on the opposite end, like straight across from you, next to the tavern, where the walls kind of crumbled away, you can see hundreds of tents set up with a couple of campfires. And amongst these tents, you see all sorts of people moving around. There's obviously some sort of station where they have a bunch of soldiers kind of camped out, and they're all wearing like the uniform, tunic and whatnot, but they're not clad in their armor. So it doesn't look like there's some sort of armed force here to do something. But they're just kind of camping out there behind the tavern. There's hundreds of them, and it just kind of stretches off for a good ways.
I thought they were refugees for a moment. Hopefully these are just military though. I don't want to deal with refugees. They're a little. Do you kind of look over to the dwarf and say, well, I mean, not all refugees. Just some. Just the mean ones. To kind of like look around nervously.
So Barriswell will like squint his eyes and he will look at this symbol, see on the uniforms, and see if he can see what the symbol is from here.
Well, the symbol is actually. Why don't you go ahead and describe to me what this symbol looks like? I'll go ahead and throw it to you. But it's a type of military crest that you would recognize from long ago, if you or even in your studies about the Mineran army, the kingdoms of man.
Okay. Army. Not knowing too much about this world. I guess then we'll just go really generic. I guess the Mineran army would have perhaps the symbol of an eagle, perhaps on their crest, and probably its wings would be like outspread majestically, and what else? It probably has it's probably got some colors to it. I don't know what colors signify what in this world, so perhaps just if I would imagine that there's just two or three symbolic colors. Perhaps the eagle is in one, and the backdrop there might be like the split down the middle, and there might be two colors or something. I have no idea.
Okay.
I just know nothing about this world. Sorry. So.
Oh no, you're quite all right. Let's go ahead and go with gold, red, green.
Okay, gold, red, and green.
When in
All right.
When in doubt, Matt, always fake it till you can make it.
So I'm gonna say that it's gold and green on the background, with a vertical split, and the red eagle is in its center with its wings majestically flying on this background.
Awesome, I like it. So you see this coat of this kind of this emblem or this coat of arms, obviously on like their uniform, kind of like just kind of stitched in hastily, or maybe it's just like a badge that's kind of stitched onto it, just to make it very obvious that these guys are all part of the same army, obviously. But they're not wearing their armor. They're just kind of wearing these tunics and stockings and whatnot, and just pants, and they don't seem to be prepared for anything specifically. In fact, they're all dingy looking as well.
I'll sort of say, as you can probably see, the Mineran army seems to be here. Who is it that you were meant to meet here?
We were supposed to meet with the captain, right?
That's correct.
Ruby would kind of pull out some paperwork. You could tell she's like the master of paperwork. She kind of you'd see her kind of adjust her red glasses, and you're not even quite sure if she actually needs them, or she just likes the style of them. And she'll kind of fold out the paper and say, "Oh, we have to meet with the captain here to finalize these documents on on the transfer of the house, right?
Yep.
And we also have to check up on the lost shipment of ale and option 3, have a great adventure. Yeah, let's get that one down too. Okay, guys.
Think your priorities are not the same as mine, but we have the same tasks.
So
Yeah.
Barisval will just look around for anyone that looks to be somewhat official, close to the main sort of,
Uh-huh.
not the tavern, but perhaps the fort proper. Maybe there's guards out the front.
Yeah.
And he would sort of see them and walk towards them and sort of hail them and try and get their attention.
Okay. And as you do this, there's like one guard kind of standing out front of this stone building, which obviously looks more fort-like than the rest of the buildings here. You could definitely tell that this is the oldest building here, seeing as it was built into the stone walls. Um, as you approach, he just kind of looks at you, kind of confused and interested as to why you'd be calling and coming in his direction. But he just kind of looks at you and is like, "Hi, what can I do for?"
He says, myself and my companions have business here for the captain. Perhaps you can tell him, her, them, that we are here."
And he just kind of turns his head and says, "Well, what business do you have with the captain?"
And I'll speak up from the back. And we're bringing your horses from. It's not Minera. Maroon. We're bringing your horses from Maroon, and we have some updates from there.
And he kind of looks back at you, Thronk, and hearing the horses and then seeing them, he just kind of like gives you guys a nod and he looks down back at you. It's Baron Sval and says, "All right, I'll get the captain. Bring the horses over here." And he kind of motions over to the left side where the blacksmith is at. Oh, it looks like we lost Joseph, by the way. Kind of motions over where the blacksmith is at. There he is. Welcome back, Joseph.
My flash player is just fucking drizzling dog shit.
Well, he motions over to the left and he's like, "Well, just take the horses over there and I'll get the captain out right away."
And Barisval will like half slide, half fall off the horse.
Ruby would look over as he's struggling and she'd say, "You need to take your feet out of the stirrups before you fall off. And then make sure you land on your feet when you hit the ground. It's not good to land on your face or your knees. It's not good."
Yeah, he manages to land on his feet, barely. And he sort of catches his beard as he does this, and then sort of moves his leg and sort of dusts himself off and guides it to where the guard was saying. Guides the horse to where the guard was saying.
Gotcha. Lucia gets off the horse with Dragon, and Dragon kind of follows along with you guys. But Lucia kind of takes her, she kind of comes over to you guys as a group and takes her hat off and looks around at you and says, "Well, thank you for getting me here. It sure has been fun." And she looks over at you, Ruby, and pats you on the shoulder and says, "I hope you guys find what you're looking for. But before I go, I want to warn you all to watch out for the Wendigo. Wendigo's watching these roads. I guarantee you, with all these crazy things happening, he's probably out there prowling too." And then she plops on the helmet, back onto her head. And he goes, "See ya," and just turns around.
And as she turns around, Ruby would whisper into her ear, and she would say, "I saw the Wendigo last night." And then she would walk away, not giving her friend the opportunity to respond. Just try to see the terror in her face from beneath the mask.
And you definitely see her eyes like widen, like it's after me almost, like terror washes over, and she's like, "Well, I gotta go," and she turns and just like scuttle runs. out of the area you
Scuttling.
guys were in. Yeah, like like she's already on her way out of Fort Sinclair. Like she had no plan on staying. So Lucia just kind of takes off in this haphazard kind of a way. Um, After giving you this warning about something called a Wendigo, and the captain kind of begins headed out there, looking at you guys and sees the horses. And well, thank you for bringing the horses to me. I'm guessing they're bringing the other two tomorrow.
So yes, we took off yesterday. They said that the rest were leaving today.
Excellent. Wouldn't be the first time a couple of handy folks such as yourself helped us with getting these horses back and keeping our men where they're supposed to be, which is really helping us out. Now, uh, I don't have a whole lot to pay you folks with, but I would like to go ahead and offer you both, or offer you all to stay here in the barracks for the night and a warm meal.
Ruby would think about this for a moment. She would look to her retired ally and her ally who is infatuated with the concept of eating food. She would say, those sound like acceptable terms. We do have other business here, though, in regards to the deed to the manor in Maroon, and perhaps the status of the lost ale?
Yes,
Lost ale.
yeah, there was a shipment of ale due in Maroon that has not arrived.
Well, that kind of makes sense. Our tavern's been out of ale for a couple of days as well.
This is bad. This is a bad omen.
I know. My alcoholic associates might have to go clean. You know.
Well, these soldiers don't have a whole lot to keep them entertained around here, but the tavern was the last bit of entertainment that they had. Now all they got left is their dice and stories.
Ruby would smirk and say, "Well, I could regale them with the tales of perhaps if you've heard of the macro and the micro." And she would smirk and look over to the half orc because he knows about the macro and the micro.
Yeah, and Thronk, as soon as Ruby's like, "Oh, I could regale," and Thronk is just like to the guy, and when Ruby looks up at him, he just looks back like, "Yeah,
well,
micro, macro."
And
I
then
don't
she'd
know
lean forward
about.
and whisper to him and say, "Economics."
Well, I don't.
And he's gonna have
Okay.
this like trying to put on this like, yeah, I knew what you were talking about, but obviously no idea.
Well, I don't know anything about all of that, but uh, I'm Captain Steelbender, and he kind of takes a glove off and puts his hand out, and he's just like a big kind of a burly guy. And he puts his hand out there to kind of shake each of your hands individually.
Ruby would snap first and try to shake his powerful hand as rough as she can, but obviously she has like nowhere near his strength. But to make up for the lack of hand strength, she would just like literally flail her arm around, trying to make it look like she's doing something, but it's just like not very convincing at all.
And he's just kind of, you know, accepting it.
Uh, Barazval at first will recoil from the sudden like movement of his hand, and then he will sort of see Ruby like take it and shake it, and realize that must be some sort of custom. So he will very cautiously like reach out his hand, and what he does is he reaches it out to the very extent, like the furthest possible extent, so that his hand is as far from his face as possible. He doesn't want someone else's hand anywhere near his body. So yeah, he takes the hand and he sort of he pushes his head backwards and shakes it at the farthest length that he can.
Well, he's also kind of a little confused by this as well, and then he kind of like looks at Thronk, expecting like the third weird handshake.
Thrunk just grabs his hand, shakes it. He actually does a two-handed, right, which is kind of
Yeah.
orcish custom, but it's fairly normal. And he just says, "Where's the barracks? And what bed and what bunk can I take? It's been a tiring journey."
He says, "Well, y'all folks follow me. We'll go inside and get you settled down." And he kind of leads you back toward that stone fort. And you guys go inside, and you can definitely tell that this stone fort is pretty much like the extent of the best it's going to get here compared to the tents. The tents in the mud in the mire over there by the tavern. So when you come in, it definitely looks a lot better, and there's like a rug and things that people are like scuffing their boots on and trying to keep it as clean as they can. And it looks more like an office at first, but you see the barracks, like there's a doorway, and the barracks kind of continue on. And the barracks are almost completely empty except for like a couple of guys laying on a couple of the beds in there. Um, Merchants who have been traveling and who are now just like taking a day's nap. And there's like one other soldier laying in there. But other than that, you don't see any equipment for soldiers or anything. It just seems to be kind of almost like the personal dwellings of a few select officers. And he kind of leads you guys in, and he sits down behind the desk, and he's like, "Go ahead and make yourselves comfortable. I'll go ahead and get some food on the way here shortly. I just got to take care of some business here." And did y'all say that you had some other sort of business you had to take care of?
Yeah, we had to finalize the transfer of ownership of a manor to our name.
And he just kind of like nods and says, "Well, let me see. Did you speak with Panelus? I think he's the Chamberlain of Maru."
We certainly did, and he told us to come here, and she kind of presents the paperwork to him.
And he takes the paperwork and like pulls it out, and he kind of like, you can tell he's having trouble reading it. And he's like, "I'm sick and tired of all this bureaucracy shit. Just let me see this." And he kind of sets the paper down, and he pulls out like a stamp or like a seal. And he's like holding it over the candle to heat the wax and things, and like he stamps it and rubs the seal into it really nice, and then like he blows on it, rolls it up, and says, "All right, the property is yours." And he kind of like turns around and begins rummaging through some papers until he kind of pulls out a deed that that is obviously for that, like it's a blank deed kind of a thing. And he's like, "I'll have this filled out for you here shortly. You just give this back to Penniless, and the property is yours, and I believe all you have left to do is pay taxes on it."
Ruby would hear the taxes, and she would almost wince for a moment, and she would say, "Oh, of course, I understand. What is the?" And she would pause for a moment, and then she would go into full economics mode. And she would say, "Oh, what is the current tax rate here on property? I need to know the property value, so I can firmly establish the amount I'm going to invest in." And she's like obviously going off into details, perhaps a bit above his pay grade, but just almost as if it's an attempt to annoy him. But you kind of have the idea that she's not trying to annoy him.
Yeah, like he just kind of like listens to you for a moment at first before well, I don't know about all that. That's all handled by panelists. So I believe you'll have to speak to them about that.
I believe Penniless is all squared away.
Oh, well, that's fantastic. Um, well,
I
let me go.
hope he doesn't raise taxes on us. That would be terrible.
Well, let me go ahead and get you folks some food and things. It'll be about an hour or so. I'm gonna head off to the tavern and see if they can cook us something. They don't have any ale, but they sure got one fine cook.
fine cook. Hmm.
Now, the fort is landlocked, right?
Yes.
Where do you get your ale from normally?
Well, it usually comes on the same shipment as Maroons does from Alistair, further west.
Hmm. Have you heard any word of troubles in Ulster?
No, we haven't heard anything from Alistair. A couple of these merchants here, though, they were on their way to Alistair, and the road just started getting a little too dangerous. So they turned around and came back, decided, it's too dark or too dangerous to travel at night, so they were going to wait till the next morning before they headed out.
I see.
That's why
And
those caravans are out front, and you guys remember seeing those carts out front.
and Thronk is debating with himself for a moment between like wanting to make sure that ale shipments are getting through, but also just wanting to sleep. It's just like ale or sleep, and kind of figures that well, the ale won't be here right now, even if he does go and talk to them, whereas he might actually be able to get some sleep. So
Ruby can tell that he's torn, and she knows what his problem is. She speaks up and says, "I can tell you want some ale, right? But see, in place of ale, I can perhaps give you some entertainment." And she kind of looks over a list as she's thinking about how to entertain him. She can see his eyes kind of rolling to the back of his head as he might start mentally dying at the possibility. She would say,
Ruby,
yeah,
Ruby.
yeah.
All I need is one of these bunks over here. Come and get me when the food shows up. And I'm gonna go
Um,
over and just not having been directed to any particular bunk. I'm going to
Yeah.
look for the one that is the most well made because on the ship, the bunk that's actually made is the one that isn't used.
Oh yeah.
So not thinking that these soldiers might have different might go about things differently. I'm just trying to the one that has no clutter and is well made and whatnot is the one he's not
I
gonna get
got you.
under the covers. He's just gonna lay down.
Well, coming into here in the barracks, you get to see that most of the beds don't even have covers of any sort whatsoever, and the ones that do have been disturbed. Almost like people are bringing their own bedding to lay
Well,
down
yeah.
onto these empty cots almost.
Then he'll go with one with no bedding on it and just
Okay. Well, all of them have like some straw put down, but none of them have like down mattresses. It's just kind of like people just bring their own.
better than a plank of wood sticking out of a wall.
Yep.
But but Barislav was gonna say something, I think.
Yeah.
um, Bariswell would be very interested in these merchants. Um,
Hmm.
the party wouldn't know why, but he would keep on looking over to where the merchants are, and he's clearly interested. And so when the captain finishes talking and lets them sort of go about their business, he will sort of make his way over there and sort of sit himself down and hail these merchants and try and strike up some sort of conversation with them. He will
Hmm.
sort of he doesn't really know how to speak with them because he hasn't dealt with merchants that much, but he does sort of say greetings. He states his name. And he sort of says, I heard that the journey west was dangerous and that you had to return. Uh, uh, Perhaps you would be willing to share a tale
And,
with a tired dwarf.
and one of the merchants seems pretty excited to speak to someone because the other merchants are just kind of like they're just kind of like, yeah, well, we're busy. We're kind of working on some things right now. We're getting everything kind of put together and doing inventory and things. But one guy is just kind of like, oh yeah, I have a moment to speak with you about that. Well, I don't know about these other guys here, but I was the first one to turn around and come back. You see, I got most of the way to Alistair, and I started hearing these things in the swamp that I hadn't heard before. We have these things called Vastil, which they're kind of like purple lizards with like it's like a cross between a lizard and a porcupine. Um, Typically harmless, kind of small, but man, there was this big one out there, and we just saw this thing looming around and did not decide that it was a good idea to continue on down the road. Um, as soon as we saw it, um, it arched up, it shot some quills at us. We got away just in time. Definitely was not interested in continuing down that path. I told the others about it too, and they turned around immediately. And here we are, waiting out another day. I'm thinking that maybe tomorrow morning it might have found another place to lie, and we might be able to get through the road down to Alistair and out of this crazy place.
Well, we've come from the opposite direction, and we too come across one of these creatures that you speak of. It tried to sneak up on us at night, came
Really?
into our very camp, and we were able to scare it off. But we were about as lucky as you, I would say.
Yeah, the thing it did some serious damage to the side of my cart, and he kind of like comes over to the side of the cart and points at it, and you can kind of see like the wood has been penetrated, and like all the barbs have been like pulled out of it, but you can see that there's like little tiny like bits of almost like bone that have been like embedded into the side of it, and
Yeah.
it just looks really gnarly on where this thing attacked the side of his wagon.
Yeah, and I will open my cloak so that he can see where the quills have penetrated into the sides of the
Yeah,
cloak.
yeah,
And I'll sort of say, yes, I had a close encounter myself.
well, I'm surprised. I'm very surprised he came out of it. That thing was huge. That thing was much larger than the still I've ever seen around here. They're like a lizard that kind of lives in the area. But yeah, definitely keep your eye out for those. That's what made me turn around.
Yes, well, fair enough. And he doesn't quite know how to ask this, but he sort of reaches into his pack and he pulls out a sealed letter and he sort of he caresses it like it's very important, and he sort of says, "Hey, I'm glad that we were able to meet and share this tale of shared experience. I'm I'm just wondering whether perhaps you are part of a guild of traders or and what you trade in. I have a letter here recommending me to such a guild and don't know much of the custom, and perhaps you'd be
Mhm.
able to enlighten me."
I see. An aspiring trader, huh?
Well, not so much a trader, and I will go into actually around my neck, previously unseen. There'll be a rope that sort of dangles around my neck, and it's underneath my chain and underneath my cloak, so no one would have seen it before. And I pull it out, and hanging attached to this rope is this
Hmm.
worked crystal, um, and I sort of hold it out, and I take it off, and I hold it out to him, and I say, "I'm actually a gem cutter, and here is my first piece of work," and I'll show it to him and um, let him handle that. And I guess how I've worked it is, it's clearly a piece of
Hmm.
a bigger crystal, and I've actually worked a rather nice sort of tunnel through the top of it, so the rope
Yeah.
will sort of loop through, and there's even I guess there's this little rune on on the front of it that sort of would very easily be identified as like the rune for the word magic, and it's sort of like etched onto it quite ornately. So you can see that it's quite decent craftsmanship. Not probably the best that he's seen, but you know.
But he takes it, and this is actually probably one of the most fascinating things he's ever seen. Because dwarven craftsmanship is saved for like weapons and dealing like craftsmanship is something the dwarves have almost lost from being pushed out of the mountains by the Durgar. So to see something like this, it's almost like looking at an antique or a relic. And to him, he's just like, oh my, this is magnificent. I I don't have any place in my trades, but you should definitely head to Alistair. There's traders there who would pay much for this, and surviving such a close encounter with these creatures, um, you have to be on some sort of road to go to this place. Perhaps we might be able to leave together and maybe confront this thing and get past it. But you need to get this to Alistair to trade. This kind of craftsmanship is lost. It's remarkable.
He blushes, like he doesn't realize what he's holding. Like he doesn't realize how significant this is. And to hear someone like praising his work so much, it's quite, well, it's complete juxtaposition to how he's been treated all of his life. Like no one has told him that he's done anything good apart from his master, who was like the one nice person in his life. So this is pretty huge to him. And he sort of gestures over to his new companions and he says, well, the only reason I survived is partly thanks to these fine companions I have. And I'm sure that if we all travel together, that it would be a much safer journey. And I'm sure that they would be willing to have you come along. But I would obviously need to speak with them before being completely sure. But yes, I do think it's much safer to travel in a group, and perhaps we would even be able to protect you in this journey.
Gotcha. Oh, by the way, I need to step out of character real quick to retcon something. Were you speaking with the merchants who were like outside with their caravan? Because those are the ones that I kind of mixed up with. But there were a couple of merchants sleeping in the barracks. Which ones were you? Because your companions are inside. If you went outside to speak with the ones outside, then they wouldn't be within visibility.
That's a good question. I would have approached any that were like awake. So if the ones are inside are sleeping, I probably would have excused myself and gone outside, because I wouldn't want to disturb them from their rest.
Okay, gotcha.
But if the ones inside are awake, then I would probably speak to them first.
Gotcha. Yeah, there was a couple of them in there awake. So we'll say that you're speaking to someone inside the building there, and that he didn't show you the cart because the cart wasn't there for him to show you.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. But he did tell you about his encounter and whatnot. So
yeah.
Continue on. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
He looks over at your companions and kind of nods his head and goes, yes, it would definitely be more beneficial if we traveled together to reach Alistair. Especially if your companions are as capable as you said.
Oh, they are the only reason I yet live and draw breath.
Excellent. Well, we'll speak more in the morning, of course. Let me get my things together and some food, and then I have to begin resting.
Yeah, so I'll excuse myself and I'll go back to my companions and I'll just like tell them what I've learned, that there's this same creature and blah blah blah, and that these traders would come with us on a journey that way if we were to to journey that way, and I would tell them that this city slash larger town that was mentioned is somewhere that I would rather like to go. Hollister in the west,
Yep.
but that it's clear that it does seem dangerous. But we've fought similar things in the swamp, even in the past day.
Yeah. So after a little bit of time, the captain comes back with a couple of soldiers, and they're bringing some hot meals to you guys. It's not like you're getting like elaborately cooked steak, but you are getting, you're getting some beef along with some mashed potatoes and nothing too extravagant, um, but some good hot home cooking, and they bring it to you and they're like, oh, here you go. Go ahead and divvy this up however you'd like. And he kind of like sets the tray down in the barracks for you guys to kind of separate however you wanted. And he's I'm going to return to my post, and I'll be there for a couple more hours before I head off to bed. And he kind of like motions out the window, and it's kind of getting dark. And Thronk, you've kind of been asleep this whole time because you took a little nap, right?
I tried to, at the very least. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you would probably like lie down, passed out immediately.
I wasn't sure if I'd still be like if I tried to sleep, if I would be affected by the strange things again. But yeah, I imagine
gotcha.
I'm in this cot with with my with my legs actually hooked up so that I kind of fit. Otherwise, I'd just be hanging off the edges, off the back edge.
Excellent. Okay. So you lay down and you begin resting, and um, you definitely feel like you're getting some more rest, but it's like this exhaustion is just hanging over you. I'm going to need a fortitude save or a constitution save from you.
All right, and this is at a negative from already being exhausted.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not a negative. It's just a disadvantage.
I don't
Okay.
believe. No, that's later. I believe. I think this is like 2 or 3 levels of exhaustion to have a penalty on saves.
It's only
yeah, that's right.
ability
It's a
checks.
save.
Well, I'll
Yep.
put it this way: though I rolled one die, and even without a penalty, it will be a total of a 9. So I
Okay.
don't think it's really going to matter.
Okay. So this exhaustion doesn't exactly fade, um, but you do get a little more rest. And when you kind of come to, there's one window in the barracks, and you see a shadow, kind of like in the window itself, and the shadow is the first thing you notice when you wake up, Thronk.
Is it?
In the window itself is kind of like one of those old glass windows where like they put it together with little square pieces, and there's like the hatching in it. You know what I mean? So it's not perfectly clear to see through. So you just see this kind of like a dark shadow.
But it seems unnatural. I mean, not that I would really know what the lighting
Yeah,
was like all the time, so I wouldn't know if there's like
I
something
got you.
out there that would cast a shadow on it or not. But if it, but you're saying it seems like an unnatural shadow.
Yeah, it seems unnatural, just kind of sitting there.
Okay. Well, I definitely wouldn't have gone far from my equipment, my axe and
Uh-huh.
whatnot. So I'm assuming the axe is like right under the bunk. It'd be
Yeah,
I don't know if they're actually bunked, but I'd be on a bottom one.
yeah.
Um, so I'll like just kind of like lolling over there with the rustling of the food, and just kind of like look over and see that, and then very quickly just reach under, grab my axe, and stand up and just look at the window and try to see what I can make out through it.
Excellent. Go ahead and give me a perception check. And this one will be a disadvantage.
Okay. Uh, at disadvantage, that's going to be a 4.
Okay. Um, the shape, the shape kind of fills up the window. A little bit of the light, like a little bit of the evening light of the sun, because the sun is now like right over the trees setting. It's not completely dark yet, but the sun is like right over the trees, so this light is coming directly at this window and creating the shadow for you. It's not exactly detailed because of the way that the glass is, but it's kind of sitting there in the window, and it's almost like it's calling you. And you hear what you do notice though is you can't really tell what's making the shadow, but your bag flops over
Okay.
onto the ground.
Mm.
Well, I imagine that makes a noise, and I'll kind of jump and look at it.
Yeah, and when your bag kind of like flops onto the ground, it like scoots forward twice, and then the figure in the shadow or the shadow in that window just kind of like disappears, like it left.
Okay. So I see the bag move this time because like
Yep.
it thumps. I look at it and then see the bag move
It like
um, in
scoots
the
like.
direction kind of toward the window. So I look back
Uh-huh.
over there just in time to see like just the very tail end of the shadow going away. And I look back to the bag to see if it's still there. And I imagine that the flap that is going over the top
Uh-huh.
uh, kind of lulled over, and the box is almost halfway out of the bag on the floor. And
Hmm.
I'm looking at it, and I start looking around, and then reach down and just push the box back into the bag, throw the lid over it
Excellent.
again.
And and so that's kind of what you experience, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up there, actually, because I was just saying, Matt just reminded me that it's wrapping up time. So
Or
this
an
little
hour
incident,
after. But
yeah, this little incident of of the bag flopping over and things, what you saw, we will end it here and pick up next time.
Well, did
Uh-huh.
Joseph want to do anything like in that time? Just like I
Yeah,
don't
no,
want to
that's a
like
good
leave
point.
without him saying something. I mean,
Um, well, you guys did your things. I think I've done a lot in the game this particular session. We'll
Hmm.
catch up on the next session. Ruby would just probably be resting. She's not as tired as Thronk, but she just kind of wait for the food and let the day play out a bit. She'd try to think of some better ways to, you know, see in her mind. She's not very charismatic, so perhaps her perspective on the world isn't quite as good as you might have hoped and it would feel. And hearing that they don't have any ale, she would kind of think of ways to amuse the soldiers, and she would think like, maybe they don't like economics. I mean, maybe they're like illiterate and they don't understand these concepts. Because you'd have to be illiterate to not like economics. And she would think, maybe what else could I do? She would think like, as a woman, she'd like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll figure it out later. And she would just kind of not be sure of what to do. And I'm sure the food would eventually show up, and she would eat it and probably prepare to go to bed or whatever.
Okay,
cool.
very good. All right, any last thoughts before we end here?
I think
Not in character.
All right, we'll end the broadcast here. Thank you, anyone who watched.
Thank you.